Hello, Texans. I'm Susana, and this is the Susana Gibb Show. Thank you so much for being with us today. On this podcast, we focus on Texas people, artists, idealists, entrepreneurs, and today, a Reiki master. She's an energy healer, and I'm excited for you to meet her. I love her. I've known her for a few years. The insurance agency sponsors this podcast. We're going to do an insurance tip at the end, and yeah, it's going to be a good one today. I got a good story for you. I can't wait to share it. And now, on with the show.
All right, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself to everybody listening.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Tulumbas. I am an intuitive life coach, a master Reiki healer, a holistic nutritionist, and a yoga teacher for many years.
So not much that you're working on. No.
Yeah.
So I always really struggle with explaining Reiki to people.
Yeah.
Like I try and explain it, and I feel like I get kind of like a glazed look on people's faces, and they smile and nod, but I don't feel like I do a good job. Can you give us a good explanation of what is Reiki?
Yes. And, it's so interesting because I do feel like there is an aspect of it that is sort of elusive. And even for me, I've been doing Reiki on people for over 10 years. And for me, it's sort of like I know that it works because I feel it, and people have incredible results. And so what Reiki is, it's energy healing. And if we take, the viewpoint that everything in the world, in the universe really, is made up of energy, we're just channeling it and moving it around. And so Reiki, it actually means life force energy. And we're using the life force energy both in the universe, the universal life force energy, and then the life force energy that is present in your own body to shift the reality, to shift the, cellular experience that you're having. And so what happens is it's a pull system. Whoever is being worked on, their body is pulling the energy. And the beauty of Reiki, what I probably love the most about Reiki, is that you're not getting more or less than what you need. And because your body is attuning and bringing in what it needs in the moment.
Okay. So energy healing. Who came up with Reiki? Like, how long has Reiki even been around?
So there are lots of stories about this, but this particular system of Reiki, which is Usui's system of Reiki, it's a Japanese form of energy healing. And, supposedly he went to a mountain and was meditating. He was a monk.
Everybody's always on mountains.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to get all this information and to meditate when we can just turn away from the world and, go hang out on a mountain and, get all the answers. And there is some truth to that, right? When we meditate, when we sit with ourselves, we do get information. And that wisdom is both coming from an internal space and then the external space, again, of that universal life force energy. And so it said that he was meditating on the mountain and, this whole concept came to him. And the fact that, we can heal each other, using this system. And so it was sort of channeled into him. Later on, there's a whole conversation about the fact that he went back into the world and he started healing people, and he eventually ended up in the U.S. and then at the University of Chicago, but there's no real documentation on that. Eventually, the Reiki was handed down actually to two women because most of the original Reiki masters ended up going into World War II. So as far as the lore goes, most of those original masters died. And so, but, this woman, Dr. Takata, Mrs. Takata, was literally handed the Reiki, mastery, which what she is then the one who ultimately, push the Reiki and continue to train masters and train people to do it. So
Usui was on the mountain at what age?
I'm
what
not
time
sure.
period?
It had to be before 1938.
Okay.
So
for some reason, I was thinking it was like in the 1890s, but I could be pulling that out of
no, I mean, you
myth
honestly
and legend.
It's so funny. I was looking through the history because I was like, am I remembering this all right? And I'm not exactly sure of the when.
Okay, but
He was
Takata
doing
got
that.
it when?
Right. Takata got it after like World War II.
So
and
we're talking
she's the one, or during, like,
1948.
she got it around 1938. Oh, yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry. It was rediscovered in the late 19th century by Japanese, Dr. Mikai Usui. So, it's so funny that I like do this all the time and I don't know where all this came from. And I always have to go back and look because there's too much stuff in my brain. But the reality is, he was, again, because there's so much potential, like, untruth to some of it, because he talks about how he was, looking to see what Jesus was doing. Basically, like, how was Jesus healing people by laying hands on people? And so he went into that sort of stream of looking, and then he started, researching Buddha. And, like, there's not going to be a lot of like real Christianity in Japan at the time he was actually looking at this. So there's just a lot of like sort of incongruous, information here.
It's so fascinating though. There's so many, when you look at one of my dreams, I really want to have, I have a minor in English and I want to have a master in English, but with a religious studies.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's how the different religions intertwine going back for forever is so fascinating to me.
Yes.
And I never ever once, in all the times I've come to you for Reiki, and I know that it's about putting hands, but I never once thought of Jesus laying hands and somebody going, how did he do that? Right? Because initially I'm like, well, you can read the Bible literally, you can read it as an allegory and myth. And so in my head I was like, well, that's a myth. But to flip the script and go, what if he was doing a form of Reiki?
Yes.
Is fascinating at the same time. So let's stay on this laying of hands. Can you explain a little bit, like if somebody comes in and does Reiki, it's like, what is this energy healing process like?
So for me personally, the way I work is somebody comes in and they sit down with me and we have a conversation, because for me, I want to have at least some sort of context about what I am dealing with. Now, you don't have to do it that way. Somebody could walk in the room, lie down on the table, I can put my hands on them, and that could be the end of it, right? We can just do the Reiki, let it do what it does, let it work what it's going to work out, and be done. For me, so much of my healing process, and therefore what I offer as a healing process, is about pulling apart grief, pulling apart trauma, pulling apart, why we are where we are in this moment in time in our lives, and how our experience of everything that has come before this moment is affecting us, is guiding us, is moving us, and is, informing our next move on some level. And so I like context. Now, the beauty of what happens here is I can take that context then, and I can know to a certain degree the intention I'm going to set for that person. I'm going to know where they're coming from. I'm going to potentially be able to see their blockages. I'm going to potentially be able to see their physical pain, their energetic pain, their emotional pain, their spiritual pain. And part of that is going to be in the words they tell me, and part of that is going to be in what their body tells me as I'm moving through the energy healing. So when someone comes, when we finally get to the point where, someone's on my table, I make sure they're cozy. I make sure they're comfortable, because the number one, piece is I want them to be at ease and available and receptive to the healing. And after that, I cover them with blankets. I play some music. I do a little bit of crystal healing, and, I brush down their energy field. And once I do that, I place my hands. There's a protocol for how the hands go.
Did Takata develop this, or is this what was handed to her?
This is what was handed to her. The master teachings were supposedly handed to her by Usui.
Okay.
Okay. And then he had decided to, she went into his basically clinic, his Reiki clinic, to heal something that she was supposed to have surgery for. And then it healed her. And so he attuned, and then so she begged him to be attuned for the Reiki. And then I think there was one other woman, and I don't know who that was, but it was the two of them that essentially, kept it going. But the hand placement, I always think is interesting, because the hand placement is a guide. And then there's always, well, you can go somewhere else if you're called to. And the other part of that conversation is, it doesn't matter where your hands are. So it's so interesting, because I can have my hands over somebody's eyes or alongside their face or behind their head, but I could be healing their liver.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily matter where the hands are, so to speak, except that there's a protocol and there's a ritual, and the protocol and the ritual creates a container, and that container creates an intention. And so we move from I know where I'm going to go. There's no surprise. I mean, sometimes very rarely is there a surprise. I pretty much go to the same place all the time.
So you talk about, you're like, well, my hands may be on your eyes, but I'm healing your liver. Which is, it's hard, I think, for a lot of people to understand how Reiki can work when you're like, energy healing can't fully be explained. Like, science can't say why Reiki works, but I know that there's, like you've even told me about how science is starting to use Reiki in hospitals.
Yeah, Reiki is the most utilized form of energy healing in hospitals. And it's interesting that they would even accept it, right? So that on some level, they know it's real, right? And we go back to everything is made out of energy, and why wouldn't we be able to move it? And they've seen very dynamic differences in particular in heart patients who have had surgery, who have received Reiki and not received Reiki in their healing process. Now,
and what happens when they receive it?
That they just heal quicker. And so they heal more quickly. Now, for me, I'm like, well, I'm a skeptic. I actually do want proof, which is why it's really so funny that I do this on some level. But it also keeps me really honest and really grounded and down to earth. And I'm not going to pretend anything with anyone. But it's like there are so many variables that are going to lead into why people heal faster than other people. Okay, maybe they exercised more. Maybe their diet was different. Maybe maybe their stress level was different. I mean, there are so many distinct attributes and variables that can lead to somebody healing more. The other place they see big results is in Alzheimer's patients, that they see cognitive function increase. But there's also a conversation of, well, is it because they're being touched and they're getting attention, or is it because of the Reiki? I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't answer that question. So, because the unknown is so real. Now, what I will say is no matter what's going on, if you're lying down on my Reiki table and you're getting energy healing, you're giving your body space to do whatever it needs to do. And I think first and foremost and ultimately, we have to remember that our body knows how to heal. And if we don't, we forget that, because we've been so sort of indoctrinated with this idea of like, oh, well, if you have this, you better take this so you feel better. Like, oh, you have a headache. Okay, well, you better take an Advil or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Instead of going, oh, why do I have a headache? Am I dehydrated? Do I have any muscular pain, neck pain? Did I eat? Like, there are so many questions. Did I sleep? There are so many questions that we can get to before we go to, let me take a pill. But in our society, we're not taught that. We're taught, go to the easy fix. Now, sometimes it's you can do all the right things. You can be hydrated, you can eat right, you can exercise, you can take care of your body, and you still might get a headache. And then if you've exhausted all those things, all those possibilities, then yeah, by all means, go for it. Take what you need to take. I'm not going to say I'm not anti-Western medicine. I believe that if they could work in tandem, we would be in such good shape. But
do you have any stories of I know you've had a few people. Do you have any story? Let me rephrase. Do you have any stories that you can share about really kind of positive results with Reiki?
So I think some of the biggest results are, less anxiety, better sleep, a shift in perception or perspective, like because the body finally comes out of that fight or flight space, which I think is where unfortunately most of us are operating, that then you have a different outlook when you walk out of the room. I have had one very specific physical shift happen, and it was from one of my clients, pretty early on when I was doing this, and she had a surgery and they had overcut something. I always get this wrong. Let me just read this to you because I feel like it's better if I read her words and not just try to paraphrase it. So this is what she wrote me after her healing session. She wrote, "So I noticed I was feeling much more free and light and better able to breathe since my Reiki sessions with you. Just went to my 6-month cardiologist appointment yesterday, and she was blown away by reading my EKG. The AV node is no longer damaged. So supposedly the AV node in the heart was damaged. They overcut it. The junctional rhythm created as a result, so her heart rhythm was off, right? And it was really super aggravating to her. It was really hard for her to function. So as a result of the damage, the junctional rhythm created as a result of the damage was there on March 14th. Okay, she was wearing a monitor. So this is how she knows this. And completely 100% gone on March 15th. She and the electrophysiologist assumed the damage was permanent since it had been 5 months since the ablation. Neither one of them has any idea what happened. I do. Thank you, Laura."
Oh my gosh. How
now,
cool
what
is
I
that?
say to that, wait, say that again.
I said, how cool is that?
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, her body healed herself. Wasn't
Yeah.
me. I'm just channeling the energy. I'm just open enough and receptive enough, and I've been attuned to it that I can receive it and move it. I honestly 100% believe everybody can do energy healing if they take deep intention in their heart and lay their hands on. I mean, that from little things oh, let me kiss your boo-boo as a mom, right? Or let me give you a hug. Those things are healing too. And part of it is because you're touch, and part of it is because it's comfort. And Reiki on some level is offering that same thing. But this blew me away when this happened, because I am such a firm believer. It's one of my core tenets. Your body knows how to heal. You just need to give it the space to do it. You just need to give it the space to process what you're experiencing. And it's not just physical. It's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic. It's all the layers of our being. So when she wrote that to me, I was like, it's good that I'm not, my ego is in check. Because, I mean, if you get a message like that, it's like, oh my God, you heal people. And I know full well that her body just was ready to heal. She was receptive enough to what was possible there. And her body pulled what it needed to heal that, arrhythmic heartbeat. And to literally repair the valve, which is so, I mean, for me still, I'm it's so insane.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, how can people find you if they want to find you to learn more about Reiki or be healed and get their energy?
So
Okay.
I have a website. It's lauratulumbas.com, Lauratulumbas.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Someday I'll be on all of the other things, but haven't gotten there yet. And people can book sessions with me, straight through my website. They can also just text me and, ask a question, or that's probably the easiest way. All my
Awesome.
information is on the site, so
People can find you.
people can
Is there
find me.
anything else that we didn't talk about that you want to mention before we wrap this shindig up?
I think if you can hold enough space around your healing experience to be open to receive this kind of energy healing, I think it's a great, way to go before you do other things. And if you're not open to it, if it's sort of like, it's too woo, then it's not for you. And that's okay. It's not for everybody. And our bodies can still receive it, even if we don't believe it. Like, you'll still get, like, if I have somebody on the table that doesn't really believe it's going to work, it'll still work, but it's not going to have the same impact. So, yeah. If you're curious and you want to check it out, by all means, I definitely highly recommend it.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being with me. And we're going to do a 7-minute meditation for our Just Take 10, which technically should probably be a 10-minute meditation, but we got to have an opener and closer. So hang out with me and we'll get ready to do that. And that will be on next week's podcast. So
perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to see you.
I feel calmer just having had her on the show. It's lovely. So, our insurance story of the week. Do you know the difference between opportunistic fraud and organized fraud? Opportunistic fraud is fraud that comes up and you just take advantage of the situation. Like, I'm in an auto accident and now I have back pain that I've actually had for a long time, but I'm going to get the insurance company to pay for whatever I need to get checked out, right? You just kind of use it at the time. Organized fraud, however, is a plan. It's going to involve multiple people. And I heard one from an insurance company that they had uncovered, and they were using different people who were slightly desperate. Maybe they were homeless or they were addicted, and they slipped and fell somewhere at a business. And the way that they uncovered it was they started to notice a pattern. It was the same doctors and the same attorneys, and that allowed them to focus in on figuring out how to break this ring. They had made $31 million from this scam. This costs you money, right? Because it causes raised premiums. It causes the businesses to have more, like it costs the businesses money because they had to deal with a fake slip and fall. So there you go. The difference between organized and opportunistic. Don't you feel better now? You're like, wow, I'm so much smarter. So glad I listened to this. Thank you so much for being with us today. Please go to our website, gibbagencydallas.com, to connect with us. We love to hear from you. You can find us on all the socials, and there you go. Make sure to tune in to the Just Take 10 this coming week. She's going to do a meditation, which is really nice. I actually did it while she was recording it. There you go. Have a great day.